Hi, I'm David Maren, SVP of Strategic Accounts at Euvic, North America. Coming to you today from beautiful Evergreen, Colorado. We have an office here in the Rocky Mountains and people scattered around the country, but we also have a ton of people over in Central Europe, and we'll get to that later in the presentation. Um, Talking to you today about the Iron Triangle. It's a concept you've probably heard of before, and I'm here to give a perspective on it. The high level on that perspective is that it's a little bit of BS, but let's dig in. So, between speed, cost, and scope, the Iron Triangle paradigm suggests that you can only prioritize two and the other must flex. That's a little troubling for two reasons that come to mind. First, I think most leaders recognize they're under pressure to deliver all three: better results, higher velocity, and lower cost. But you can only prioritize two. And the second reason is troubling. There's a lot of IT leaders who are still trying to pick one of these categories to master before they can even think about picking two. And let's talk about that for a sec. I mean, leaders they're concerned about their IT spend. There's exploding cloud costs hitting them, especially with Gen AI, and all that's hitting OpEx. There's a lot of overpriced vendors out there with bloated team models, high hourly rates. So that's a piece of it. And then on the time piece, leaders are disappointed with ongoing project delays. Most software projects feel like they run late. The backlog, the roadmap, it's typically growing, not shrinking these days. And another component of this that's tough is that leaders are just frustrated by having to sacrifice scope and see outcomes fall short of expectations, take shortcuts. Now let's talk about what really compounds the pain on the next slide here. Legacy tech debt. That's what compounds the pain. The Consortium for Information Software and Quality pegs tech debt principal at 1.5 trillion in the US alone and cites it as the biggest obstacle to making any changes to existing code bases. So a lot of deficiencies aren't even getting fixed in the first place. And let's look through it at the microeconomic lens, the lens of the single developer starting with. Like, typical developer feels like they're spending 17 hours a week on tech debt. They feel like that's just an efficiency loss for them. So if you take the average salary of a software developer in the US, Indeed.com says it's 105K. Probably a little low too. Um, so that converts to 44K of efficiency loss per developer. If you're a company with 100 devs, that's 4.4 million in efficiency loss just working on tech debt. But that's not the real cost. The real cost is what else could that team of 100 developers be doing with those 83,000 hours a year? So tech debt, it's a problem. It's a big reason that companies are struggling to master certain aspects of the Iron Triangle. And let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about more of the challenge. Shaky data foundations. So when you look at this quote from Gartner Research, only 4% of organizations have reported that their data is prepared for AI. You know what that means? Like 96% are not prepared. And there's huge implications for that across every industry. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, but you can see them for yourself. Um, and so, yeah, that's a second compounding factor that's challenging the companies when it comes to the Iron Triangle. And let's move on. This is a big one too. Let's say you need help. You're looking for an external partner. Where do you go? That landscape of options, totally disorienting. So there's onshore, there's nearshore, there's offshore. Those are big words. There's a lot of nuance in each one of those things. Offshore in India compared to Central Europe, compared to wherever. And then the types of firms that you could partner with. Do you go to the big four? Do you go to agencies, digital experience firms, dev shops? Um, the it's a convoluted landscape. Um, there's a million different options out there, and I could tell you a few things about how to navigate it. Let's go to the next slide. Well, let's go back to the triangle for a sec. There are companies that are of the mentality that you can pick two and master two of these things. There are companies we talked about that are having trouble picking one to master. But then there are companies that have found ways to do all three and really successfully navigate around the constraints of the Iron Triangle to get better results faster and for less money. So how did they do it? We looked at that. And in each case, it required making a couple changes really, to a few key aspects of their software development strategy. Next slide. So what changes did they make? Did they suddenly become masters of Gen AI developer tooling? Well, we found that Gen AI is a big part of the answer, but it's not the place they started. Instead, where they started to change things up is in how they actually staffed their projects. And it makes sense. People before platforms, because people are the ones using platforms. So let's dig into a couple stories here. Next slide. All right. Here's a quick story about two companies and a research team at Stanford. One company ramped down their Bay Area software team by 42 people and assembled a 41-person team in Poland. They didn't have a team in Poland before, they set a new one up. And after just a 6-month ramp-up period, that new team in Poland was just as productive as the Bay Area team, but it enabled the company to achieve 40% cost savings. Now, there's another multinational, and this is the other story here on the other side of the slide, that already had a team in Poland, and they had teams all over the place, all over the world. And they found that their team in Poland was 56% more productive than their average across all their offices globally. Now, in both cases, the Stanford research team employed a novel algorithm to generate a language agnostic scoring of software commits as a way to objectively measure productivity. And as we go to the next slide, it's interesting to note that Poland was kind of the hero of both of those stories, but it's not an aberration. There's a few different kind of global leaderboards in software development, and when you pull these together and look at them, Competitive Programming Hall of Fame, HackerRank, Google Code Jam, Poland leads the free world above every other country in the free world when it comes to software development. Now, you might see Belarus up there and think, what about them? Yeah, I don't recommend it, or China or Russia right now. I think you want to stick with countries in the free world. Um, but here's the deal. Poland's a great cost play, but it's an even better quality and productivity play. Next slide. So I mentioned the story of those two companies that each had killer results in Poland, and there are other companies like those that have found ways to successfully navigate the constraints of the Iron Triangle to get better results faster and for less money. And what they all have in common is that they made a crucial change to how they staff their projects. In each case, they found a software development partner who was able to staff their projects with world-class engineering talent in Poland. And we have a special name for that cohort of companies that defies the laws of the Iron Triangle. We call them clients. We save them a lot of money. It's not actually why they stick with us, though. That's more of a bonus. They stay with us because of our speed and performance. I'm not going to make this into a big sales pitch on why we don't do that. What we do, however, is leverage AI big time to write code faster, a lot faster. It's not just that, though. Like, there's a lot of shops popping up who talk about an AI first approach. It's great. But we've been doing this for 20 years now, and that's a big piece of it. Our team, core team, they've been around here for 20 years, some of them. Some of our clients that we started with 20 years ago, they're still clients today. A lot of them are, in fact. That continuity is a big piece of how we've been able to accelerate and deliver quality software faster for less money. Another piece of that, we've got 6,000 people now. But they're not generalists. They're focused. They're focused on different technologies, different industries, solving different problems. And we have found a way to effectively self-organize teams around their passions and around those spaces. So what you get when you start with us is a team that has deep experience solving similar problems for similar companies. And AI is a great accelerator when you know how to use it properly, but so is experience. It's that combination that really makes a difference. Next slide. And I want to leave you with this. It's really commonplace among software services firms to use the Iron Triangle to frame negotiations with prospects and clients, suggesting that it's simply not possible to simultaneously reduce the cost of a project, accelerate delivery, and increase scope. This manifests as as asking clients and prospects to identify which one or two of those are most important and saying that the other or others must flex. It's so common, in fact, that it's typically taken as truth in the industry. But in reality, it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. After all, all three are indeed possible by making some smart changes, starting with which firm is selected to deliver on your projects. And to make that decision, really try to understand how they're using AI to write code faster. and how they're passing the savings on to you. Really try to understand what their experience is in your space, if they really know what they're doing. And it's not just about lower hourly rates. It's what they can do in that hour. And the results of that are just wildly different. Happy to talk more about that. You can email me at david.maren, that's Maren, at euvic.com, EUVIC. Thanks for listening.